We have a lot to talk about today, but the biggest thing is going to be the historic lease agreement and plans to develop the area around PNC Arena. Hey, what's up, everybody? So, first thing I would like to do, I would like to offer my condolences to the Buffalo Sabres fans and the family and friends of Rick Genere. He was an amazing announcer, Hall of Fame announcer. Unfortunately, he passed away this week. First and foremost, so I wanted to offer my condolences to everyone in that regard, and may he rest in peace. Another thing I would like to do quickly, all the guys I gave a shout out to last week, they were on the Hockey Podcast Network, which is already pretty big and it's only getting bigger. And I feel like that they represented the Canes and their fan base really well. So I wanted to give those guys an additional shout out and tell them that they did a good job. I let them know on Twitter too, but I really enjoyed what they did on that show. I didn't get to see it live on Friday night. A friend of mine quit his job and we were out celebrating that, and he's moving on to bigger and better things. And then somehow that led to us being at home eating quesadillas, fried chicken, and watching Days of Thunder, which is one of my favorite movies ever. So I just wanted to, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to these guys again, as I did last week, and say that they did a really good job. So as usual, we're going to do the comment replies first, and I got one really good one that is going to segue into us talking about the primary topic of today's show, which is going to be the historic lease extension with PNC Arena and the plans to develop a lot of infrastructure around PNC Arena, which is going to really enhance the game day experience. So the first comment here is from Joe Friday 7609. He says, when exactly does his contract expire in the KHL? This is in reference to Alexander Nikishin, and I told him 24-25 season, sad face. Yeah, unfortunately, Nikishin can't be over here until then, more than likely, unless the Hurricanes managed to get SKA to release him from his contract. The double IHF even got involved with the Ivan Fedotov situation, so I don't think that that's going to really have an impact on what happens eventually with Nikishin, just out of the simple fact Nikishin didn't technically try to defect or sign a contract with the Hurricanes preemptively or anything like that. So I think that that's not one-for-one comparable, but it definitely does have... It definitely could set a precedent in the event that Nikishin decided to sign a contract in advance, but he's already said that he wouldn't. I think the best thing to do there is just let him finish up his KHL obligations and then bring him over here, and I don't really think he's going to have a problem assimilating to the game in North America. It's only going to enhance what he brings to the table in the game, being on the smaller ice surface, playing the more physical brand of hockey. But that's something I'm actually going to talk about a little bit later in the show in regards to the analysis video I'm making of him. It's coming along, and I just want to give an update on it because I know I take forever making these, because I actually end up cutting a lot of stuff out of them. Joe Friday, thank you very much for the comment, and I hope you enjoy the show and keep coming back. So the next comment here is from Max Randall 5791. He says, terrific video. Thank you. I found your channel while looking for whatever I could find out about the Hurricanes second round pick, Felix Unger-Sorm, believing if he can build up especially his lower body strength that he could become Sebastian Aho 2.0. I went back to watch some of your older videos to see if you saw it like I did. Found only a little blurb about how you might do a bit on Nadu and him, though I never saw anything else. I've also heard you refer to a Nikishin video that I've not been able to find. One last thought, you might want to take a look at Alexander Rykov. There's a lot to like there. Okay, thank you for the comment. And so... as I wrote a reply to you on this as well. So basically, I put a poll up, which I'm going to show the result of at some point after I segue into the rest of the show and everything like that. I put a poll up where I was talking about which prospect I would analyze next, and the options were Alexander Nikishin, who's got a pretty big lead on everyone else last I looked, Felix Unger-Sorm, Bradley Nadu, and Scott Morrow. Rykov, I will probably have him in the next poll after I do what's more than likely going to be the Nikishin video of his analysis and everything like that. So all those guys will have analytical videos made about them. Some of them it's easier to find footage than others, because I've actually been working on the Nikishin analytical video for a while, and I've found everything that I need in regards to physicality, because hit highlights are not hard to find. I found everything in regards to goal scoring with him. I found a lot of his playmaking ability, because when the KHL makes their highlights, that tends to be the things that they show. So typically what I have to do is I have to look for moments and highlights about other people where Nikishin does something right, or try and find a full KHL game. I haven't really found that yet and everything like that, to be able to highlight exactly what I want to illustrate with him. Felix Ungerstorm, it won't be so much of a problem to do that. Being able to find Swedish hockey footage is a little bit better and a little less murky as far as the copyright stuff is concerned, from what I can tell anyway. So I definitely do see a little bit of capability there of him being similar to Aho. I think with Felix Ungerstorm, you're going to get more of a playmaker type than Aho, whereas Aho's more of a like, fine, I'll do it myself when it comes to offense. He just kind of he scores a lot on individual efforts and everything like that. So I definitely see some similarities there as far as the way that they conduct themselves skating wise, finding open ice and all that type of stuff. But with Felix Ungerstorm, I see more of a playmaker. I see more of a puck distributor. I see more of a guy who sees the ice really well, picks where he wants to pass it to, and he executes it flawlessly, and he does it in a very deceptive way, and he baits defenders doing so, just from what I've watched of him. But I do see some similarities in their game, yes. Building up his lower body strength, I absolutely believe that that would be very beneficial to his game, and that's not uncommon, especially with European players and everything like that. They play a much more finesse game on a larger sheet of ice, and then you have other guys, more often than not in the KHL, like Nikishin, who do have an extra physical game that, theoretically and hypothetically speaking, will translate well when he comes over here to play. So yeah, I'm definitely going to do one on Felix Ungerstorm. So when I do the next poll, since it looks like Nikishin's going to win this one, the options will probably be Scott Morrow, Bradley Nadeau, Felix Ungerstorm, and Alex Rykov, I think will be the next four, because the Nikishin one, he's leading it, and I'm actually going to show those poll results here in a little bit. So, and the other Nikishin video that you're referring to in the last sentence is the first one, where I do just kind of a simple look at him and explain why that there's difficulty with bringing him over to North America and why it's kind of becoming a Kaprizov situation, but maybe a little bit more complicated than a Kaprizov situation, but hopefully doesn't get to the levels that the Flyers are dealing with Ivan Fedotov at, to the point where the double IHF is getting involved. I'm hoping more than anything Nikishin's contract with SKA will expire. He comes over here to play. Orlov either takes a reduced role or he moves on, because he was signed a stopgap between now and getting Nikishin. So we'll see how that goes and everything, but I'm very confident that everybody that the Hurricanes have in the pipe, Rykov is definitely one of the guys I can see making it to the show with the Hurricanes, barring them trading him, but I don't see that happening. I did watch some of Rykov's highlights, and I haven't really found the words to quantify it yet. I have what I think, but I want to make sure that when I say it, I stick to what I'm saying and everything like that, because like when it came to the Nikishin highlights, I rewatched them about 15, 20 times a piece before I came to the conclusions, and then I started making the video about him that I'm making now. So, thank you very much for the comment. I hope you keep coming back and enjoy the show. The Huge Caniac is back again. Thank you very much, sir. He says, yeah, I agree that tailgating is awesome at PNC. Lucky enough to tailgate at the Stadium Series before the game. One thing, the parking lot will definitely improve the parking hassle during busy game days. It's been notoriously bad on big game days. Yeah, when I got there, so the last game I went to before I went to go see the Canes and Devils play Game 5, the last game that I saw before that was the one where Svechnikov tore his ACL, and even though I got there super early, it was kind of packed. It was on a Saturday, I want to say that game was. That playoff game, though, I'm really happy I took an Uber over from my hotel, because I saw the parking lot and I saw everybody trying to get parked and everything, and even though everybody, like, they were letting people in the building early and everything, and it alleviated stuff a little bit, but it was still mad packed in there, because I remember I was up there, BSing with a couple of people before warm-up started, and then I went down to watch that, and I saw people were just filtering in the whole time, and the lower bowl was already filled with people down there to watch the warm-up and everything, so the parking deck is definitely going to be helpful. I can see them maybe potentially making a rule along the lines of, hey, only tailgate on the top floor of it, and I'm wondering how many floors the parking deck will be and everything like that. And then, you have to consider you're in the South as well. You're going to have a lot of big trucks and everything like that. I'm looking forward to the day that I can get a big truck again. I had one and I loved it. So basically, it is a unique experience as far as NHL venues, at least as far as I know and everything. But the parking situation was getting a little bit rough, considering that more people are going to games now, and if you're going to build the infrastructure around it like they're planning on, there's definitely going to have to be more. So, but yeah, it has gotten worse on big game days, and it's getting to the point where the Hurricanes are having near sellouts every single game. I can't tell you the last time that I was in that building, even though I've only been in there about 15 times over the last 3 to 4 calendar years. that it wasn't near capacity. So, yeah, the parking deck is a good idea as long as they execute it correctly and don't build it up too high or anything like that, because then it's going to get annoying. Or maybe if they can put a tumbler in it so people can go straight to the roof, and then that way if you get there early on game day, you can just go park straight on the roof, and then when you filter cars in, they don't have to drive all the way to the top. They can go to the second to last floor or the first to last floor, wherever there's availability at. I know that when I went to go see games in Washington, I kind of used to drive there, and I would pay for my parking in advance, and even then it was still annoying. I got to the point where I just started Ubering there so that I didn't have to worry about it. It took forever to get in, it took forever to get out, but it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm close enough, I'm just going to get out and walk the rest of the way. The infrastructure improvements they're planning on making definitely are going to benefit the game day experience. They just have to make sure they execute them right. But so far, since Dunn has took over the team, I don't like all the business decisions, but pretty much all of them have had a positive impact on the team from what I can tell. What I've seen people complaining about the most are like the way that they're doing the season tickets. Now, I've never been a season ticket holder because, like I said, I haven't lived in North Carolina in a long time. Huge Caniac, thank you again for the comment, and I can't wait to see you next week. Thank you for the support. Chandler Hemphill Media, good to see you, bud. Need an alternative. This is in regards to the video I made about making an alternative to the EA Sports NHL games. He says, need an alternative for Madden as well. Yeah, they all need alternatives, dude. So, for example, I play iRacing. And one of the reasons I play iRacing is because there hasn't been a good NASCAR game in years. And there's also never been, there's not been an IndyCar game made since, 2005 or something like that. And I'm really into both those things. And then for sports car racing, yeah, I've got Gran Turismo, but I kind of feel like that series is showing its age. It's not nearly as good as it was when I was a kid. So mostly I play iRacing. I want to get into Assetto Corsa Competizione one day. Yeah, everything needs alternatives right now. It feels like almost everything, even something that's got as much variety as racing, it seems like is becoming heavily monopolized. That's one of the reasons why I would like for alternatives to start popping up in all these. Now, I haven't played MLB games in a long time, even though I love baseball, but most people I know say that the show is worth buying at least every other season or every 3 seasons or so. And I watched the NHL 24 trailer, and I was like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where I'm like, hey, I've seen this one. There wasn't really anything to get excited about. I saw some people in the comments saying, oh, this is new, innovating, stunning, brave, and all this other stuff, and I'm like, meh. But yeah, they all need alternatives. They've all gone stale. They're basically taking the same game over and over again and charging people $60+ for a roster update. And it's 2023, and those days they're long gone, in my opinion. It's time to go do something else. So, for example, kind of like what I'm saying with maybe making a game that's centered around college hockey and minor leagues like the SPHL and using World Junior rosters and stuff like that, you could definitely do the same thing with football. Like if you had a collaboration between, say, the XFL, the USFL, and NCAA to make football, and I'm okay with playing with college players getting paid royalties. That's a story for another video, though, but I'm personally all right with it. At one point in time, I wasn't, but I've changed my viewpoint on it for a multitude of reasons. But I'm okay with college players making money because they're out there risking themselves just like professional players are and everything. So yeah, definitely. Madden also needs an alternative. I don't know if the MLB games necessarily need an alternative, but I don't think it could hurt. I have one friend who plays NBA 2K and says it's great, but he's worried that it's starting to go a little bit stale as well. Yeah, gaming in general, I wish the industry would blow up and there would be more independent developers that don't have strict deadlines or aren't completely at the behest of their investors start popping up to start making some of these alternatives. I think that would all be great. So I agree. Chandler, thank you very much. Hope everybody's doing well down there. All right, so we have another repeat commenter here today. This is Jersey Sean. So I had to break this up into 3 parts to be able to get it all on the screen and everything like that. And I really like these long, really intuitive comments like this, and this one is perfect for me to segue into the main topic of the show. So thank you very much for this in advance. I'm just going to tell you thank you already, and I'm going to read every bit of it, and then we're going to segue into the show. So he says, great stuff, man. Thank you. Really looking forward to this upcoming season and seeing your channel grow. As for Renovations, PNC is definitely outdated compared to most venues, at least compared to all the other ones I've been to. Most importantly, though, I think the development of the area around the stadium is the most vital factor because PNC Arena doesn't have the luxury of being downtown like most stadiums are, so it's not as easy as other places to grab dinner before and simply walk to the game. Tampa did a pretty good job at redeveloping the area around Amalie Arena with Water Street and Channelside the last few years. So, funny story, my girlfriend actually used to live in Tampa. She never went to a hockey game down there. Actually, she never went to a hockey game really until she was with me. But she told me a little bit about like that area and everything like that, so I'm kind of familiar with it and everything. With the news that we just got in regards to them developing the area around the arena, that I'm super excited about. So I'm going to go into the next part of your comment, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Wouldn't mind seeing something similar to that implemented here, although logistically, not sure how they could pull it off. I think generally just an area to hang out close to the stadium would go a long way. Different restaurants, bars, stores, and maybe even an area for people to hang around, drink, and watch the game outside on a big screen who aren't going to the game. I really like that idea because, like, you've seen like what they do up in Toronto and everything like that. I think that would be awesome. I do remember that when the Canes were playing the Caps in Game 7 a few years ago in the playoffs, they had a big screen set up downtown for something like that. If they could set up something like that at the arena and start having watch parties during away games and stuff like that, that would be great. One thing that comes to mind is the plaza outside of American Airlines Center in Dallas. That's another good example. They have basically an open arena with places to get food, drinks, and even merchandise stores for both the Mavericks and the Stars. Aside from the Hurricanes, facilities like this would also be useful for NC State football and basketball. That's an important point as well, that, you know, the Hurricanes are not the only thing there. They have concerts there. They have NC State basketball games there. They have, like, alumni events and everything like that there. So something like that would benefit a lot more than the Hurricanes, and there'd be a lot more ways to generate revenue, and you would have a steady flow of income from those facilities year-round, even outside of hockey and basketball season. So, yeah, that's a great point there as well. Let's see. As a side note, I'd really like to see the Eye transform into a much bigger store. Yes, I believe I said that last week. Going to the Eye on a crowded game day is aggravating, and that's how I got a bobblehead stolen. Anytime that I try to go to the Eye now, I'm either going to try and go during an off day when they don't have a game, or I'm going to try and go in during the day before a game, and then go put whatever I buy in the truck, and then just go in normally with my ticket after that. But a bigger store would definitely be nice. Because, dude, there's not enough room to do anything in there when people ever are all in there and excited. And I go in there every time, even if I'd been there recently, just because I want to see if they got anything new. You know, 7 times out of 10, I walk in that store and I don't buy anything. I like seeing all the stuff that's in there. And I think that if they were to renovate PNC Arena, because you've got 3 different little or you've got the main Eye by that one entrance, and then on the concourse, you've got the small one where people go to drop off their sweaters to get the iron-on numbers done. And then you've got that other little shop in there that has, like, the hoodies and the pucks and all the little hat store and everything like that. The fan base has outgrown those exponentially. I think that at this point, removing the 2 smaller stores inside of PNC Arena and making the actual Eye bigger, like you could even like expand outward where the sidewalk in front of the Eye is and make it one gigantic store, and it would probably be a lot more efficient, and you could operate it on less personnel. And the places where the other small Eye stores were, that's somewhere else that you can put a vendor of some sort, someone who sells food, booze, whatever. These things definitely, like, there's a lot of potential for really good stuff here. Me being someone with absolutely no architectural experience, just what I'm visualizing, if they took the Eye in its current location, built it outward, and just made that like one really long strip by that one sidewalk there, on the same side where Carter Finley is, that could potentially be a really big hit. So that's what would be cool, and having like a little off-site merch shop would be really cool as well in the area that they're developing around it, like you were talking about, like with the Mavericks and the Stars there and everything like that. That would be pretty cool in my opinion. It is the smallest pro shop in the NHL. I can believe that. I've only been to 2 or 3 different... Let's see. I've been to about 4 different NHL facilities. And yeah, it's the smallest one. Dude, the one that the Thrashers had was bigger, even, if I remember correctly, but it's been a long time since I was there. There's a lot of potential for this area, and from a fan experience perspective, it could really make game days even better. I had season tickets last year for the Hurricanes, and my biggest complaint is, stand by, let me switch comments, or switch to the next snip of the comment here. Definitely things to do before games. I would just end up walking in the parking lot. I would just end up waiting in the parking lot for games to open. Me and my dad did that in January last year. We were there for a while. Whereas in places like Tampa and other cities, there's a lot to walk around and see and do beforehand. As for location, I know there's a lot of land around West Chase Boulevard, entrance to the stadium once you get past the office buildings, but I'm not sure who owns it. My best guess is NC State. I'm actually not sure either. That's something I'm I think I'm going to try and look up now that you mention it. Lots of people are always walking to and from the game there for parking, and I think it would be easy enough for people to go park for the game and walk over. If not, you could turn the area around West Chase into additional parking and then turn the parking lots near the stadiums into small entertainment district. It'll be interesting to see what they drum up. Yeah, so I think that all that's good ideas. Now, disclaimer, I'm from North Carolina, but I'm not from the Triangle. I grew up about an hour and a half south of it. So one of the things that I'm really excited about is if they develop all the stuff around West Chase Boulevard, that would be a good place for, like you're talking about, like a little entertainment district. And I'm going to segue into the main segment of the show here in a moment, thanks to your comment, and I really appreciate it. And one of the things that I'm excited about is apparently they're building a hotel that's like within even closer walking distance than that one Ramadi or whatever it is, when you walk past where they have the fair and everything like that. And so I'm like, that's going to make me really happy if I'd be willing to pay extra money to stay at a hotel that is right next to PNC Arena so that I don't have to go anywhere. I can just park my truck, go upstairs, check into my room, go out, do whatever, go to the game, and then go crash after that. That would make my day. Especially if it's pet friendly, I can take my dog with me, then that would be really cool too. So then he could just hang out upstairs until I got done, and we could go for a walk after that, and it'll all be good. I think that would be really cool. So, yeah, there's a lot of potential for this, but now we actually have some news on what they plan to do with the official announcement that came earlier this week. So, thank you very much for the comment, Jersey Sean. I appreciate it. Alright, so time to go on to the big news. The Centennial Authority and the Hurricanes sign a 20-year lease extension. Raleigh, North Carolina. The Centennial Authority, owners of PNC Arena, and Gale Force Sports and Entertainment LLC announced today that the signing of a 20-year lease extension with the Carolina Hurricanes. The newly signed lease states that the Hurricanes will occupy PNC Arena through the 2043-2044 NHL season. So, are they going to go to Quebec after that? Because I've been hearing for like a decade that they're going to go to Quebec. Oh, and Aho wants to go to Montreal, even though he just signed an 8-year extension with us. For less money than what he's worth. As part of the agreement, PNC Arena will undergo major renovations, including the development of a transformational, vibrant sports entertainment district and public gathering space around the arena. The development will create a live work play destination for Triangle residents and visitors throughout. All right, so when I have the next few highlights up here from the articles and everything like that, it'll get more into the numbers and everything, and we can like start kind of speculating on what type of stuff they may have planned here. So I'm glad these things are happening now and not earlier. The market needed to be revitalized a little bit. People needed to understand that 2019 was not just a one-off fluke. Big name free agents look at this franchise now as a destination where they could come win a cup or two. The game day experience now, in my opinion, is better than it ever has been. Like doing the thing with the big boards and everything like that. But the fan base has certainly outgrown the infrastructure of PNC Arena and what little bit is around it. Alright, so now that we're into the next part of this, let's talk about the numbers around it and everything like that. So, the new lease extension includes a combined $300 million investment from the city of Raleigh and Wake County. As part of the development, Gale Force will enter into a ground lease to develop the land surrounding PNC Arena in a phased approach. Gale Force will commit to a minimum $200 million in Phase 1 development within 5 years, $400 million within 10 years, and $800 million within 20 years. Additionally, Gale Force will pay for 100% of all private renovations to PNC Arena. So I think that the reason that they're doing a slow development and everything like that, when they develop the infrastructure, this, like I said, I'm not an architect, I'm not even a construction worker or nothing like that, but this is just what I'm imagining. If they build too much too fast around the arena, then they're not going to be able to know how to gradually sort out the new parking situation and how they're going to allocate spaces in the parking deck, how many cars that's going to fit, and if it's going to be multiple parking decks and all that type of stuff we don't know yet. I'm sure that they've got it all on paper, but that stuff, I imagine, it changes the further and further you go along in the process and everything like that. So the cool thing about developing the infrastructure around the arena slowly is infrastructure outside of Gale Force's jurisdiction will probably develop along with that, and then that'll filter more people from that area closer to PNC Arena on game day. And then you're also going to have a bunch of situations where people just happen to be close by. They go on their phone, they're like, hey, you want to go to the game? They find tickets within their budget, and then next thing you know, you got a couple more tickets that you sold and a couple more Caniacs in the house. So the reason why they're tiering the development all the way out to the 20-year mark is basically they're setting themselves up for 20 years from now, if not sooner, because the lease that they just terminated to have this lease was set to expire in 2029. So I think the reason that you're seeing this say something along the lines of 800 million in 20 years is they're setting a benchmark so that way when they hit the 400 million or the 400 million dollar development worth in 10 years, they can already maybe look at getting another lease renewal a little bit early if they meet their deadlines and meet whatever goals they have for revenue and everything like that, and see what's a big hit with the fans, what's maybe not so big of a hit, and what you need for, or what strengths, what weaknesses, what areas of improvement that this infrastructure development around the arena would have. So I really like what they're doing here. And another cool thing about them phasing it is I'm hoping that they're not going to try and do any of this construction during the season, because college basketball and hockey overlap, of course. A lot of this stuff would probably happen during summertime, and construction tends to happen more in warmer months anyway. And then they could just build it up however much at a time over the course of however many months. I don't think we'll see much different, at least not right inside the actual grounds of PNC Arena. I don't think you're going to see a parking deck built between now and the start of the upcoming season. I think maybe you could start seeing them before the start of next season and everything. Granted, they build stuff a whole lot faster. Technology's come a long way. It's going to create a lot of jobs. That's going to be really good, but I'm really excited about that. It sounds like that they've got a pretty solid plan here to develop everything around it. Okay, so getting into specifics of the type of stuff that you're going to get in the phases here. So Phase 1 commitment by Gale Force includes developing at least 100,000 square feet of retail and dining space, 150,000 square feet of office space, 200 multifamily residential units. That's pretty cool. A 150-room hotel. That would make my day. Like, having a hotel within walking distance of the arena, like I said, I'd pay a little bit extra because I only go down there about 3 or 4 times a year for games, but that would make the trip a whole lot easier, and it's kind of worth spending money to park somewhere within walking distance and have a room within walking distance, as opposed to taking Ubers and Lyfts and all that stuff, because that stuff's gotten expensive too. You might as well save the gas and all that and save yourself the trouble and burn a few calories on the way there and on the way back. And a 3,000, 5,000 capacity indoor music venue. I think that that's a good idea too, because, you know, there's been times where I've been to other events and there's like a concert going on outside of it. Most notably, I've been to a couple of football games where they were doing that. I've been to NASCAR races. I've seen that quite a bit. Let's see. Additionally, Gale Force will provide 10% affordable workforce and or faculty housing on all phases, no more than 80% of area median income levels. Gale Force will also commit to replacing 95% of any public parking displaced by the development and will set aside 5 acres for a dedicated tailgate zone. All right, there we go. 5 acres is plenty of tailgating space. So I figured that they were going to do something like that because, like I said, I skimmed over this article before, but I didn't really get to sit down and take all the notes with it that I wanted to. So they're maintaining the tailgating and still getting the parking space. I'm really interested to see how all this turns out because I think that this could be really awesome. Now, in my opinion, here's the best part about this whole thing. NHL to grant Hurricanes all-star outdoor games following completion of renovations. So that if they needed another motivating factor to get this stuff done, this definitely helped. I was listening to Joe Ovi's talk to Don Waddell earlier, which is going to be another part of the show here in a little bit because he talks a little bit about Pesci and Shea. Love or hate Gary Bettman, he did, per Don Waddell, has some influence over the Centennial Authority and everything to help move this along. So I got to give credit where it's due. He was also one of the guys that kind of stuck up for this market when a lot of other people weren't, and he's sticking up for the Arizona market right now, which that might get its own video from me, that whole situation, because I feel bad for the fans in Arizona because they're dealing with a lot of the same stuff that we used to deal with, saying, oh, nobody cares, moving to Quebec, moving back to Hartford, moving to Houston, all this other stuff. But back to the subject matter at hand here. With the planned renovations to PNC Arena and development of surrounding property, the NHL is willing to bring back some key events. All right, so the biggest things here, that promises to bring back both an all-star game and an outdoor game to the area. So, me personally, I've not been impressed with the all-star game in a long time. I used to really love the skills competition, and I would go out of my way to watch that. And I felt like that was kind of mid this last season, too. Like the breakaway challenge was just kind of lame. And the all-star game itself, it's like these guys already play 82 games a year if they stay healthy the entire time. And then they go out there and they play a semi-lackadaisical like beauty league game 3-on-3 in the all-star game because they have to go back to their day job. Nobody wants to get hurt in the damn all-star game and then miss playing for 2 points a week later. The all-star game is one of those things that, like, I think it's got its purpose and all, but if the NHL said, hey, we're not doing the All-Star game anymore, I wouldn't really be upset about it because I just don't feel like it's what it was, and I feel like it's kind of past its purpose. Now, there's ways that you could maybe potentially revitalize it, because the one that they hosted in Raleigh, even though I didn't get to go, was pretty cool. You know, like having the goalies do the fastest skater challenge. There's other innovative things they can do to make the All-Star game great again, but it is kind of gone stale in my opinion. That redundancy and that repetitiveness is kind of starting to leak over into the skills competition. So I think that maybe if the All-Star game does come back to Raleigh, I hope that maybe they make some big changes to it like they did with the format the first time the All-Star game was in Raleigh. So hopefully they can come up with something like that, because I do feel like it's gone kind of stale. According to the Centennial Authority's lease negotiator, Dan Barrett, the NHL has agreed to bring both events back to Raleigh, thanks in part to doing new lease and plan development and redevelopment projects. So Don Waddell says Dan's been representing the Centennial Authority and negotiating this deal. He's got a great relationship with the NHL, and as part of this lease, he talked to Gary Bettman about two things we talked about: acquiring an All-Star game 3 years after the renovations are done, and then committing to another outdoor game. So there's another thing I'm going to get into here. This is where I'm really excited. Another outdoor game is awesome. If there was a penultimate moment that said that this market turned itself around, it was the Stadium Series game. And if there was any doubts about North Carolina being a place where hockey was popular and truly loved, I think that anything left about that was remotely rational was dispelled. If it's not, then it just kind of, this ain't my favorite term to use, but it just comes down to haters going to hate. Because at the end of the day, that was an amazing experience, and it was something that I thought I would never get to go to, much less one in my home state, watching my favorite team play against another team that I've went to see frequently. That, you know, we've butted heads a little bit, but I've got a bunch of buddies that are Caps fans, so it's like, it was cool to see them in that venue. It was also really awesome that we won decisively. Anyway, so the Stadium Series game, them having another Stadium Series, I don't see them putting it anywhere other than Carter Finley Stadium. I saw some people say that maybe they could do it in the DBAP where the Durham Bulls play. I don't think you'd have as good of an experience doing it there. Carter Finley, once you were inside, was great. The parking was an absolute nightmare. Me, my dad, and my friend that went, we sat in traffic for hours, and we got there relatively early, and we didn't park for about 2 hours. And I was not worried about, I was more worried about missing the game starting than anything, and it was only about 2 o'clock. Like, straight up, I was worried about it. So the next time they do a Stadium Series game, I hope that they can sort the logistics out of it a little bit better. So continuing to talk about the other Stadium Series game, Dan asked me if we wanted to get a commitment in the next 2 years for an outdoor game, and I said, give me 5 years, we need some time off. Yeah, so them doing it in another 5 years, I think, so planning that was already rough as it is. When you factor in the stoppage in 2020 and the original date getting pushed back all the way to 2023 this year, yeah, it was already going to be a logistical difficulty, and a logistical bad dream turned into a logistical nightmare with that, I would imagine. So waiting 5 years, that serves more purposes than just being more prepared for it and everything. There's a lot of advantages to waiting 5 years as opposed to 2. The first advantage being that gives time for some of these developmental plans that they have. That gives them time to implement some of them. 2, the Stadium Series game was just this year. Having it 2 years from now would make it kind of redundant, in my opinion, and, you know, if you wait a little bit longer than that, you'll replicate that majesty again. And doing it so soon after, you might not replicate the majesty that you had the first time. It's going to be hard to replicate the majesty of the first one anyway. So I think 5 years is a good time frame. If it takes a little bit longer than that, I'm not going to complain. So everything around it will be developed. There will be a lot more places to hang out and a lot more things to do. I'm much more excited about the idea of having another Stadium Series game than I am about having an All-Star game, because the Stadium Series was the best thing I've ever been to in my life, and it's something I will remember forever. And turning around to doing another one immediately in 2 years would kind of take the majesty out of it, at least for me, as much as I enjoyed it. 5 years, though, I would probably start getting the itch to go to another one. All right, and then regarding the Stadium Series, then they announced it at the game when they announced the attendance, which was 56,961, was the highest attended Stadium Series game in the history of the Stadium Series. And the game itself generated $13.6 million in total economic impact, but the entire event weekend generated 20.1 million because people were coming down there and getting hotels and staying and eating and all that type of stuff. The event saw the highest online merchandise sale ever for a Stadium Series and was the most viewed Stadium Series game since 2019, averaging 1.1 million total viewers. The Stadium Series, give it time for people to miss it. Give it time to marinate, and then when you bring it back, it'll be even more impactful. Maybe by then we'll have another cup banner. It's a distinct possibility. And then after that, you're also like, yeah, some of your older core is going to age out. You got all these young, exciting prospects coming up, particularly on the blue line with Scott Morrow and Alex Nikishin and everything like that. So the team is in a position to be good for a long time. But yeah, focusing on other things and then having another Stadium Series game down the line, I think that's a great idea. So to summarize, really excited about all this stuff. I'm really excited to see what type of restaurants that they can have around there, because one cool thing about Raleigh, there's a bunch of people from a bunch of different places. I told my girlfriend next time we go down there, we're going to go to this one place. I believe it was called the Big Easy NC, which is like there's people who are actually from New Orleans that run it, and they make these really awesome po' boy sandwiches there. So I'm going to take her there, and when we go down there for a game next time, and having all that infrastructure around there, you could have a amazing variety of food. You could have some like hibachi places. You could have some genuine like brick oven pizza places, all within walking distance of the arena. You could have new burger joints, all that type of stuff. There's so many cool things that can happen with this, and the sky's the limit for this. It really is. So they picked a good time to do this. The team is succeeding right now. It's at its all-time high in popularity, and people are finally starting to respect this as a hockey market. There's going to be some people who never do. There's going to be some people that say, well, where I'm from, it snows 9 months out of the year, and hockey shouldn't be anywhere else. Let them have that. Let them think what they want to think. The Hurricanes have proven that this is a true hockey market. So now on to some other stuff tying into the comments from earlier. I had this poll up. I'm going to go ahead and consider it closed because I don't think that anyone's going to catch up here. But I only had 11 votes on it, but that's enough. So I asked, which prospect would you like to see in an analysis video? These will all happen eventually, but you tell me which one you want first. And to the gentleman who made a comment earlier, sorry, I forgot your username, Felix Ungersorm will be one of the ones that gets made, and then in the time frame that I make them for Felix Ungersorm, Bradley Nadeau, and Scott Morrow, there will be one for Alexander Rykov as well. So, but as it stands right now, Alexander Nikishin running away with it. It makes sense. He is the Hurricanes' top prospect, at minimum on the blue line, but in my opinion, overall, he is the best prospect the Hurricanes have right now. Like I said, the only thing really holding me up with his videos is some of him making plays that are more centered around stick work, poke checking, playing angles, and gap control, as opposed to him just hitting people, but it seems like he likes to really just hit people. It seems like with his game, instead of making stick-on-puck plays and separating puck from player, he tends to use his body and lay hits and separate player from puck instead. He's more about using his shoulder to separate the player from the puck, or using his hip to separate the player from the puck, than he is about using the stick to separate the puck from the player. So you're not getting another Jacob Slavin with this guy, but you're getting someone who's incredibly defensively competent and contributes a lot of offense, contributes a lot of physicality and sandpaper. He will fight, all that type of stuff. I'm just looking for the last little bits of that video, but this will be the next one. As a matter of fact, here's a preview of the thumbnail. So when I start making these videos, I actually make the thumbnail first because for some odd reason, I guess maybe it's just now that I'm learning how to do them and everything like that, I think that making thumbnails is the most time-consuming part of the video for me. Actually making the video itself and adding in the arrows and the graphics and, you know, adjusting the audio levels on the commentary and stuff like that, I actually don't have a super hard time with that. I definitely want to get better at it. When it comes to thumbnails, I definitely have a little bit of a time coming up with what they should look like and then making them fit the specifications. This one is getting close to being done, and it will be the next prospect video that you guys see. So to finish off the show, Don Waddell talked about at length in an interview with Joe Ovies. One of the things he touched on was the whole thing with Pesce and Shea, and it sounds like that they're going to try and start talking more as camp gets close. Because this time of year, players are, you know, wrapping up their vacations or anything they're doing. They're getting back to doing their off-ice training and all that type of stuff. The Canes Twitter posts stuff about them doing off-ice training all the time, and it's really cool how dedicated these guys are, especially, like, you know, ones that you know live in Raleigh, like Jacob Slavin and everything like that. Pesce in particular, I'm hoping they really do get a deal done. He just got married and everything like that, so he's busy. He's probably, you know, just coming back from his honeymoon if he's not still on it, because one thing this actually reminds me of, there used to be this thing the first time that ESPN covered hockey, they had a little mini animated thing that you could go to, one of those click-through things that you would see back in the early 2000s and the earlier days of heavily commercialized internet, was they had this thing called the ESPN Hockey Factor. I'm actually going to go see if I can find it on YouTube. And it talked about how short an off-season was for an NHL player, especially if they went on a deep playoff run. So when these guys do stuff like plan vacations, plan weddings, plan honeymoons, anything like that, it's not a very big window. So, you know, things being relatively quiet for a certain period of time during summer, like you hear a lot of news like right after the season ends and right around July 1st and for the coming weeks after that, and then suddenly it all goes quiet. That's not too unusual. So he talked about it a little bit. I do hope they get a deal done, but there is a logjam at the blue line. Someone's got to go. But we will see. In addition to all the prospect videos, I've got some of the current players. There's one on Jacob Slavin that's going to be particularly extensive. I mean, to the point where I'm considering breaking it up instead of it being what I project to be a long 30-minute video. This one right here will probably be the next one you see of a player on the active roster, and it should be about 15 minutes long. I'm finishing up some stuff on that, so you should see this one and a video titled Alexander Nikishin Complete Defenseman sometime within the next couple of weeks. But above all, I want to thank everybody for helping me get up to over 100 subscribers now. I really appreciate it. And as the season gets closer, I'm going to have more stuff come out, and we'll have a lot more to talk about around those times too. I plan on making a lot more analytical videos like I did with the Sebastian Aho, a Modern Rod Brindamore one. Thank you for all the comments and support that I got on that. It's quickly becoming one of my most watched videos. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the show this week. I'm putting up some more GoPro footage, and I'll have some other stuff come out during the week, hopefully. But at minimum, there will be some more GoPro footage if you enjoy watching that. So, y'all take care, and I'll see you next time.